Hi, I'm Derek,
I'm Sam.
And I'm Carsey.
and this is Unpacking Homelessness, the podcast where we take a deep dive into the issues surrounding homelessness in our community. Let's get started.
Hi.
Hey,
Hey,
Rachelle.
Rachelle.
How are you guys?
Good. How are
Swell.
you?
How you
We're
doing?
great.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you guys too.
Yeah, well, let's hop right in. Let me introduce you to the listeners, Rachelle. So, Rachelle is a dedicated foster mom with a passion for personal growth, reading, cooking, and staying active outdoors. She's committed to helping others achieve their potential through meaningful relationships and a positive mindset. She's worked in mental health for years now, and most recently as an outpatient manager and a lead admissions counselor. But Rachelle, we're most interested in talking to you about all the great things you've done in the past and are currently doing in your local community. So, I guess first question for you is tell us a little bit about what you're doing with your church and how you collaborate with other churches for community impact.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we focus a lot on service and helping the community. One of the things that I'm currently doing is partnering with other churches in the area. Right now, we're doing a big food drive for our town. So a lot of people in the town and local communities are working with that. Next week, my congregation is helping serve dinner to some of the unhoused in our own town and in our own neighborhood. And we do that by partnering with a few other churches in the area, and everyone takes turns. They take a different night to come help serve and provide the meals. We utilize the Just Serve app, which is where you can search for all sorts of different service opportunities in your area. Just this morning, I searched within 25-mile radius of me where I'm currently at, anything to do with homelessness, and there are 61 opportunities and projects already going. So it's a great way, it's a great tool that we utilize to help connect with lots of different people in the community, and just really pull together to help others.
That's great. That Just Serve app, that's national, right?
I might even be international. It's a free public app. You can go on, and if you're hosting a project, you can post there to try to bring volunteers into your cause. Also, if you're looking for a way to help, you can go on there and join other causes as well for all sorts of opportunities.
What are some examples of ways that people can volunteer? Maybe somebody who's not able to commit every weekend or a day or two, for like indefinitely, but somebody who's like, I've got some time this weekend, or I would like to make time once a month or once every 6 months. Like, what is something that people can do to get involved?
Yeah, I think there's several different ways, and there's a couple different ways that you can volunteer. So there's time. You can volunteer your time. You can volunteer resources, whether that's gently used clothing that you're not using anymore or home items, as well as money. So I think some people think I have to have all of this time available. I have to have all of these resources available. And a lot of times there's little things that you can do. A couple of things that I've done with some friends is in the fall or spring when people are naturally cleaning out their closets, donating gently used items either to shelters or foster care communities. At least in the cities that I've been, there's also donation bins in a lot of parking lots, like at schools or sometimes grocery stores, that you can donate there as well. I think you can also just have items in your cart at the ready to be able to hand out to those in need as you see, whether that's water or granola bars or some blessing bags with like lunch and money and hygiene items in it. There's a lot of things that you can do and just keep with you all the time.
Yeah, I think that donating is like a low-hanging fruit, that something that's become like pretty common. Like everyone I know, like no one's really adverse to donating their stuff versus throwing it in the garbage,
Yeah.
right? But I think we all kind of put it all in bags and we take it to Goodwill. I think we all kind of have that's like a go-to, right? Like a Goodwill or Value Village, Salvation Army. Like, would it be a helpful switch to say instead of I'm going to go to a Goodwill, I'm going to go find one of those bins, or I'm going to go drop it off directly at a different donation center? Is there a better option there?
Great question. I would assume actually probably every town has some form of a clothing closet where families and individuals can come in and shop for free. Essentially, they can pick out the items that they need. Donating to thrift stores and local places like that does help provide jobs. It does help provide more affordable clothing closets, shelters, those sorts of things are available for people who don't have any monetary means to purchase things. And I imagine a Google search, you'd be able to find one that's close to you. And I've noticed there's a couple different, there's some for unhoused, some for women and children, some for foster care. So there are a variety of different options as well.
What if I was Googling it then? What would I do? What am I searching for to find like an ethical place to donate home goods or clothing, whatever I have? Yeah, what would you suggest that I search for exactly?
Yeah, I would just Google clothing closets near me or
Clothing
in my
closets.
town.
Okay.
And then you can look up and see which ones that align with the goal that you're going for or which ones are close to you.
Oh, very cool. Okay. Nice.
They're also looking for, I think a lot of times some people think like, oh, just children's clothing is what's needed, but a lot of times business clothing, like adult
Oh,
clothing for those who are interviewing and trying to get jobs. So those items are also very helpful and very needed.
sure.
What are some other items that people may not think to donate, but that could actually really benefit unhoused people in particular?
Oh, great question. I think one thing that initially comes to mind, especially when it's coming to food items, would be things that you don't need to use a lot of other things to prepare. For example, some people don't have can openers. And so cans that have the pop tops is a really helpful item. A lot of just over the last couple of years, I'm realizing there's a lot of kids who've never had a birthday cake. And that might not be something that a family can afford when they're trying to put meals on the table. And so donating birthday kits with items like that can also really make it very special
I
for.
didn't
Okay,
even
well
think
now
about that. That's
now I have
great.
to ask, what am I Googling if I'm trying to find somewhere to send food to? I never
Yeah.
even thought of that.
Yeah, a food bank, a local food bank. Two places that my mom volunteered all while we were growing up was our town's food bank and
I
a
can donate
cooking
to a food
closet.
bank.
Yes, anyone can donate to a food bank.
How I
And
never knew that. How did I not know
oh,
that?
yeah. Anyone can
Did you
donate
guys
to a
know
food
that?
bank.
Did you know that you could donate to a food bank?
Hmm.
You did? Do you donate to a food bank?
I haven't in a
Put
while, to
me on
be
the
honest with
spot.
you. So we've
Well,
done
you
some
knew about it.
fundraisers. Would you call our center a food bank, Cars?
Uh, our center's not a food bank, I don't think. They're more of like a community pantry.
Is that something you can donate to?
Yes.
Hmm.
I could Google community pantry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Or Bing it even.
If you want to get wild.
Okay. Wow. Teaching me a lot over here.
Yeah. Rochelle, I got a question for you about your it's one big thing you did. So a little bit of background about Rochelle and I. We were friends back in Northern Washington. Same with Carsey and Sam. Funnily enough, all four of us from Washington State. You put on an awesome benefit for Haiti. There was a natural disaster, and we're talking about all these small but important things you do, but this was a big one. Tell us a little bit about what went into organizing that, how many people were involved.
Yeah, that was an amazing example to me of how a community can really pull together in times of need. A friend that I went to high school with was in Haiti during the earthquake and survived a very traumatic, experience during that and survived that. And we discussed it and we pulled together a lot of different musicians and community members in our town to do a benefit concert to raise money to send to those in Haiti. And we found an organization that one thing that I really value is education and teaching people to be self-sufficient and teaching people skills so that they can learn and grow. And this company that we worked with helps purchase goats or animals for families. They teach them how to raise them. They teach them how to milk them. They teach them then how to sell those products in their community. So it really helps them. And we where we're from is very musically talented. And so we just reached out to everybody that we knew and we said, hey, would you be willing to come perform? And we reached out to a community member who very generously donated the funds to rent out the Performing Arts Center at our high school. And we decided, we went back and forth on should we charge admission, should we not charge admission? We decided to not charge admission, and so that people could donate what they could and still come even if they couldn't. And it
Great.
just blew my mind how much the community came together with their talents. I think we raised about $6,000 and about 400 people came. And by the end, there were even people who were like, I don't have money to donate to this cause, but I'm going home and I'm going to clean out my closet and I'm going to donate it locally, or I'm going to start volunteering somewhere. So I think the ripple effect is even larger than we can imagine on events like that. But it was really neat to see that when people put all their differences aside. I think so often in today's society, it's so focused on how everybody's different. But I think when people put that aside and really just come together to help communities, miracles happen and we can have a really big impact.
No, that's great.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So much goes into that. You alluded to a few things. So when you're starting from ground zero for a big event like this, very first thing, is it just talking to friends? Is it trying to get some big acts together? What was kind of the order of putting that together?
Yeah, first, just a couple of us started chatting on, hey, is this something that we're interested in doing and that we're able to do? And then we just slowly rippled it out to a couple of people. And once we realized that there were a lot of people willing to perform at this and to attend this, then we just needed the funds to be able to find the space. They were willing to donate their time, and we just needed the funds to donate the space. We also got a couple other donations, like a giant video wall was donated to help with like a slideshow in the background. A lot of like the lighting and the sound, those who are running those donated their time also. And so some of it is just asking your connections. I've found that a lot of people really want to get involved and they just don't know how to get started. And so one of the mottos, I'm an anxious person, and one of my mottos in life is do things anxiously. So like do it even though I'm anxious about it, do it even though I'm scared about it. And a lot of other people might be similar. And so if you do something while you're anxious with somebody else, it's a little bit easier to get going.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that is awesome. I love that. Do it anxiously. And so you mentioned this slideshow. I'm curious, what's the strategy there, as far as like using visual media and media in general to help encourage people to give?
Yeah, the first part, because Haiti is removed from our current location, right? A lot of us hadn't traveled there. We weren't familiar with the culture or the people. Our goal was to have those in the audience fall in love with the community and really understand who they are and where they live. And so the first half of the show was a little bit more like upbeat music with beautiful pictures of the community and the area. And then halfway through was talked about the earthquake. And then the second half was more emotional music with the destruction. So you really could fall in love with the people and then see and really try almost to put yourself in their shoes of like, what would that be like if your community had something like that come through it? And so that was our goal, was to help people really connect and see the devastation that had happened.
Yeah. So it seems like something that is somewhat accessible for at least some of us, like having an idea or a topic that you really want to do something about, and you kind of want to put a little bit more of yourself into it than the occasional volunteer. And you feel like for whatever reason that year you have the capacity, or you don't, but you're going to do it anxiously anyway, and you're going to make it happen. However, that still takes a lot of bravery. It really does. I think even reaching out and putting your idea out there and feeling like worthy of having, like, there's a lot of, to me, it takes a lot of braveness to do something like that. Like after putting your, the Haiti benefit on, like, what are your thoughts on empowering people to do something like that and to take the leap of faith and to let it unfold as you plan through it?
Yeah, I think just remembering that every single little thing matters and it makes a difference. And you don't have to do something big. You can do something small. And a lot of times it is starting small. And I think I've been lucky that I have seen service throughout my whole life at home and in my church community and my town, that it wasn't totally foreign to me on, hey, there's people out here who want to help. We just need to connect everybody together to like make that happen. And so I think just starting small. Two of the things I hear from a lot of people are I don't have time and I don't have resources. And I was just did a Google search and was like, how much time do people spend on their cell phones? And the average is 4.5 to 6 hours a day, which is about 2.5 months annually. And there were multiple studies and surveys that were like backing up this average. And I just got to thinking, like, what if we even took like a small fraction of that time and invested it in our neighbors? And that would really strengthen our communities. That would then ripple out to others. So I think I would challenge that, like, probably sometimes we do have time and we don't realize that we have it. So making sure that we're scheduling it in and we're planning for that. And then it's okay if you don't have monetary means to do that. Our time is valuable. It also, in a way, is free. We don't have to pay for it. We don't have to have resources for that. So even if it is donating your time to help with someone else's project that's already in the works, until you have ideas of your own and you want to start making that happen, just doing something, everything matters. It makes a difference.
Yeah, definitely. And when I think about like I mean, even on its face, right, trading those 2 hours a week for volunteering, what that would do to your self-esteem and your sense of community. I mean, I almost would argue it would give more to you even than it would to the people around you. And nobody needs more doom scrolling right now. So I think that's a great suggestion.
Amen to that. Yeah, there's one out here, Rachelle. It's called Family Tree. They offer a lot of great services. To be very clear, we're just learning about them. So there's a lot that they offer that we're trying to get more familiar with. But they're very official. They make you go through an orientation that takes about an hour where they explain their offerings. And right now we're doing a mandated reporter training to how to identify and report suspected child abuse, things like that. So they're very official. They don't just kind of throw you to the wolves to just start volunteering. You learn a little bit, but they offer just a lot of services related to homelessness and domestic abuse services out there. But I think that one thing that this podcast is very important for is just raising awareness of we don't know what kind of resources are out there. And so research it, share it, do exactly what you did, make connections to make an impact.
And I think you brought up a good point about the time that it takes sometimes to learn those. I've noticed that the closer you are in line of contact with the direct client, the more training that you'll receive. So if you have more time, that is something that you can invest in. If you have less time, you can do things that are more behind the scenes as well.
I mean, we say, they make you do this. I know you didn't mean it like that. That was just the sentence. They make you do it. They make you do a training.
Thank you for that disclaimer. It was a great training. You guys did great if you're watching
exactly.
this.
Yes, exactly. When I think about that, I'm like, wow. So they really want to make sure that the people that are getting involved with this are invested and are aligned with the goals of the organization and how they operate. So on its face, it might seem like, well, I got to do an orientation, but knowing that there's value in that orientation and it will help align you with the direction that this organization is going in.
Well, homelessness is just such a deeply personal thing. Rachelle, we were just talking to somebody earlier today where she was homeless for some formative period in her youth. And that's one thing that we've kind of had struggle with this podcast of, we want to interact with a lot of the homeless and we're trying to find a nice way to go about it without offending and being respectful. But I feel like these trainings are super necessary to make sure we're doing things the right way.
Yeah, you mentioned youth. And that is something too that we should touch on, is that some kids only eat when they're at school. And teachers and school communities can really use donations, whether it's snacks or money to go towards school lunches. There are a lot of government programs too that help in schools, but some kids are only eating while they're at school. And so having extra snacks in classroom for all ages, elementary, middle, high school, is something that I would guarantee almost every school district in the area could benefit from, or some extra hygiene products too, in case kids don't have those.
Yeah,
That's a great point.
absolutely. And toys, right? I mean, when I clean out, I have two little boys, and when we go through their playroom every few months, I'm like, what do we do with this stuff? You know, who's gonna want it? And I think it's probably pretty clear. There's a lot of places that can use stuff like that. And for kids, especially who are experiencing some really difficult times in their life, a toy that could be, you know, old and whatever to you is really valuable to them and is something that they can hold on to. So it's a great reminder of where we can put our things that we don't need anymore.
Definitely. And especially before the holidays, a lot of people after holidays will do like a big clean out because now they have extra things and then donate. But there are parents and family members who are trying to find affordable things for their kids for the holiday season. So if proactively going into the holiday seasons, people can clear out some of those things and donate in advance, then someone else can get some of those at a special time of year for them.
Oh, yeah, I love that. That's a great tip.
Well, talking about toys is reminding me about your foster care situation, Rachelle. That's wonderful. Curious to just learn about what that process is like, and you've shared with us some of the great things that you're doing in terms of self-sufficiency and teaching foster kids. So, would you enlighten us there?
Yeah, to become a foster parent, it is quite a thorough process involving training and home inspections and state inspections, licensing inspections. So that process itself does take several months of classes and lots of people coming through, opening every cupboard in your house, making sure everything is safe, making sure that it's good. And there are also a lot of opportunities for, I think one of the biggest needs that I'm seeing now that I'm a foster mom is that mentors are very important and very needed. And that's something that people can do without needing to fully become a foster parent themselves, especially because kids age out of the foster care system at 18, even if they're still in high school. There is an extended foster care program that can help cover them and navigate them through the young adult stages until they're 21. And then, as far as I know, there's no formal resources necessarily after that. And so all ages, it's needed to have mentors on whatever that looks like. But I would say at least ages like 16 and up, very valuable for like finances, budgeting, how to get a job, how to keep a job, how to work with people at your job that maybe aren't your favorite, how to navigate applying for college and applying for scholarships and navigating housing and how you find roommates, or if you don't want roommates, how can you afford to live by yourself? So a lot of mentorship is very needed. Also, if you have a skill, like say, for example, if I was a mechanic and I could help maybe someone a little bit with either a discounted price or something on some car maintenance, because it's hard for them to get, their licenses and to get a car and then the maintenance of that as well. So there are a lot of ways that people can get involved by donating their time and their knowledge to help other people. And then similar to the clothing closets and things like that, there are places specific for foster youth where they can go in and they can pick out whether it's toys or clothes, some new, some lightly used. Some of the kids who are in foster care have never once purchased something new for themselves. Maybe they haven't ever had a birthday cake. Maybe they haven't ever really gotten like a birthday present. And so there are nonprofits and for-profits in every community that people can search for different foster care. If you look up a licensing agency, that is who foster parents go through to get licensed. So they work adjacently with the state. The state department is who works with the children. But if you search foster agent licensing agencies near me, then you can get a variety of different options available. I was overwhelmed with the amount of options that I had when I was trying to pick out an agency to be licensed through. And
Wow.
they do a really good job, at least in Arizona. They ask a lot of questions like what type of youth are you willing to house? What type of, beliefs do you have? Or are you willing to support if someone believes differently than you? And so I was able to do a lot of research on these programs to find one that was really great in helping all youth in all stages and all backgrounds. And so you can go through the state side of it or through licensing agencies too to find some good options.
That's amazing. And you mentioned nonprofit or for profit.
Mhm.
Should people be discerning of what type of organization they're going through?
I think that you should be more concerned about the benefit that's actually going to the client than if it's a nonprofit or for profit, because people do need to make a living and they do need to survive, for themselves and their own families. And so I
Mhm.
think that it's absolutely fine for a for profit to help the community as well. There also are a lot of nonprofits, and it can get a little tricky because sometimes you hear nonprofit and you think 100% of the donations go to them, but then they might have a huge overhead that actually is paying their volunteers. So very little of it goes to that. Where a for profit might have this is the set salary. So then everything that's donated is going. And so it really just depends on the individual company. And I don't necessarily think one is better than the other. So just finding one that you align with and that you're able to provide to.
Yeah, on the nonprofit front, that makes perfect sense. We talk to people in the community that don't make much at all in the nonprofit sector, and so that's been a kind of a frustration of these great people aren't making much money. And I think that there maybe is a sort of generalization that for profit means that whoever the founder is making gobs of money, but that's not necessarily the case. You got to do your due diligence with any of them.
And I think that's why sometimes people opt to donate items or time instead of money sometimes because then they know where their items and their time are going to.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if you are going to donate a large chunk of money, that would be one that I would say make extra care that you're aligned with and that you know how much of the donation is going somewhere. Otherwise, even if you don't 100% align on everything else, you know that the food you're serving to someone is making a difference. You know that the clothes you're giving is making a difference. And that's ultimately the goal at the end of the day.
Very good point.
There was one other thing that you mentioned that I thought was really interesting about blessing bags. Can you tell us more about what a blessing bag is and what you might put in there?
Yeah, my mom always would carry around. We're from the Seattle area, and so she would have a little brown bag that would have like lunch, and I don't know if there were different things at different times, but just different items in there, whether it's a little bit of cash or food or hygiene items. And it's something that's small that you can keep in your car with you. And if you see someone, if you're like at a stoplight or an intersection, you can just hand it out the window very easily for somebody. And so you can decide what you want to put in there. One thing to think about is geographically where you live and the time of year. For example, I live in Arizona right now. It's very, very hot in the summertime. And so in the summertime, maybe having like Gatorades and water bottles, or I used to live where it was very cold in the winter. And so I tend to collect beanies and scarves and hats and end up being like, I don't need all of these. And so instead of donating them, I might just keep them on my front seat. And when I see someone who might need something warm, then you can hand those items out as well too. But just a blessing bag, some often with things that you already have in your home.
Non-perishable foods are good, so you're not worrying
Mhm.
about the things going bad while they're sitting in your car. And
Yeah.
hygiene items, I suppose things like chapstick, tissues, wet wipes. What about sanitary items for females? Those are hard to come by, I imagine.
Yep. Pads, tampons, toothbrushes, toothpaste, sanitary wipes, even hand sanitizer, a little comb. Travel size shampoos and soaps and things like that are very small, and affordable that you can toss in there as well too.
I think about like someone who might be on the street, what it could mean to get something with all of these items in it, and what how could that could just really change their whole perspective for that time period, right? I can go and I can put on some deodorant and I can brush my hair and I
Yeah.
can brush my teeth and I can feel like I've done something for myself today. You mentioned another thing that I thought was really interesting about kids aging out of the foster system when they hit 18. And that is really a problem. You're in the middle of senior year. right? You've gone through this whole experience of being displaced from the family maybe you were born into or being into a foster system, and then all of a sudden you're kind of on your own. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I also was very surprised. I had assumed that it went all the way till I graduated high school, and I think actually probably nationally, you can graduate high school up to the age of like 21 or 22. So I thought there would be an umbrella to help. Hey, you're 18, but like let's help you graduate high school. But it's on their 18th birthday. All the resources shift, and they can opt to consent to being in extended foster care from 18 till 21. And so then they will still have someone helping them navigate. They do get some resources as well too. But it is a big change as some are maybe they're in a group home and they don't have like a parent figure that's helping them navigate. Some of the group homes have oh gosh, like 10, maybe even more kids in it with staff that are helping them navigate and trying to do their best. But it also is their choice then at that point. And so some kids choose, I don't want to have to check in with anybody. So they choose not to have options of those resources. There are some requirements. You have to have like, at least in Arizona, I think it's like a weekly phone call with someone or just check in to, make sure you're doing okay and see how they can help support you. There are also there's some really good nonprofits and programs that are dedicated to that are outside of the state. But you really have to know how to find those and how to navigate those. I got really lucky that my licensing agency knows a lot about these resources and was able to help connect me to those. But if you don't have that, it could take a lot of Google searching and asking different people who work in the industry, like what is in your area.
Yeah, I guess on that note, you've lived across several states and you've been active in the community and all of them. What sort of differences have you seen in terms of what local needs are, differences in navigating the resources?
Good question. I think I've actually been more surprised how similar it is. I've lived in Washington State, Utah, and Arizona. And when it comes to helping people, just seeing people come together for the cause, no matter where I've lived, is really refreshing. And just seeing that there are options in every town I've ever lived in, whether it's food banks or clothing closets or volunteer opportunities. There are resources everywhere and there are people everywhere. We talked a little bit about doom scrolling earlier. Sometimes it can feel like we're alone and nobody cares and the world is falling apart and everything's a hot mess. But when I unplug from that and start talking to people, really people they do want to help and just have to find how to do it.
Rachelle, I see you as a very optimistic and bright light. Like you really are. And I just want to poke holes in that a little bit. So,
all right. Yeah.
Oh, take her down, Sam. All right.
I love learning all of this about how to help and kind of making the barrier between just kind of the average person trying to navigate the system ourselves of just going to work and taking care of our lives kind of blending into, okay, well, we got a little extra time. And so it's like, how can we help people who have even less than us? So yes, I've loved learning about all of the positive ways in how everything is going and working and what we can do to help. But I'm wondering what are the holes in the system? Like, are you seeing what are the flaws in the system that are really like have had a light shine on them in your line of work?
Yeah, this might make me emotional. So I tend to kind of be a perfectionist and I want to be good at something before I do it, which is not how anything works, right? You get good at doing something by doing it. And so when it comes to being a foster parent, I kind of put it off. I need to own my own house with a backyard and I need to have more money or I need to be better. Or I need to do more. And I kind of just kept putting it off. And I was like, well, I'll start by volunteering. And I had heard a story where someone said that one of the foster homes they lived in, they had to sleep on the floor and it was cockroach infested. And that's absolutely not okay. Like we are providing for these kids and we are taking ownership in helping. And in that moment, I knew that me at my worst would be better than a cockroach infested floor. And it's been very eye-opening to see that there are a lot of wonderful people out there wanting to help, and there are people manipulating the system and who aren't pulling their weight like they say that they're going to. And I just feel very strongly that it just really bothers me that when grown-ups make poor choices, how much it can affect the youth of our country. And there are future leaders of our country. They deserve to be protected and they deserve to be helped. And I just, yeah. So
Yeah, it all starts in childhood, really.
it does.
Yeah, right.
And the patterns that they're learning, some things that I learned growing up just by watching my parents who always had a food and supply storage and they budgeted and then they would kind of talk about little things with us. And so I just saw things growing up that I assumed everybody knew because it was so second nature and normal to me. And then when I moved out at 18 and had roommates who had no idea about some of the just general things that I thought everybody knew, really kind of opened my eyes to the difference in knowledge and self-reliance, and ability to help other people as well.
Yeah, well, and Sam, you bring up a really good point though, is when a lot of these things are kind of tied to having a stable income, and it's very common. I forget the percentage of Americans that live paycheck to paycheck, and when you don't have extra money to give, then I wonder, maybe can you go into a little more detail on that Just Serve app of the type of things that'll come up, because volunteering time, assuming you have a little bit of time, there's some easy wins there for more occasional help.
Yeah, like you can go on there and there will be people who have made quilts and they need help tying them. So you can go tie quilts and they'll give them to the community, or they have the hygiene products. They just need to like place them in all the bags to be able to give away. Or they have the clothes, but they're not sorted. And so they need to sort through those clothes. I've seen a lot for unhoused refugees, and humanitarian are kind of some of the top three. So in your local community, as well as a little bit further out in America or internationally also. And so there's all sorts of, hey, show up and like sit and tie quilts with us, to actually we need some manual labor on like cleaning a yard or cleaning, building something. There's quite a variety on there.
Yeah, speaking about how formative our youth is, I imagine entering into adulthood, if you weren't able to graduate by 18 with that weight, of the foster care system, then graduating after that is just added pressure and just an added challenge. It just seems like the odds of that happening just narrow a little bit. And I can't help but think too that 18 years old, or, like entering adulthood and even teenage years, what kind of programs are storing some or installing some dignity into the youth to give them confidence to feel like they can enter into something as intimidating as the workforce and have the skills that they need, and feel like they can stand a chance competing with their peers in that setting where they've always had less, but now it's their time, they're adults, they get to set their own rules, but they're coming out with such a disadvantage. Are there any programs that help kind of build that confidence in those like formative years for them?
Yeah, the one that I know the most about, which is still not a ton, but it's called Keys to Success. And I think their larger company is Friends of Foster Care in Arizona, or something. But they have two different focuses: career focused and academic focused. And so there's different reps for each area, and they can help with very foundational thing of like, what is a resume? How do I write a resume? If I've never had a job, what can I put on a resume to help someone want to hire me? And they can do mock interviews, and help these youth find jobs and to navigate how to keep a job, and some of the budgeting aspects of that too. And then the academic piece is the goal to help them graduate high school, help them go to a trade college, help them go to a community college or a university. I think there's a lot of value in looking at all of the options, because university might not be for everybody. And maybe a trade school is exactly perfect for somebody, and helping them connect to the right people. That is one of the programs that I really appreciate here. And I would imagine that all states have something, paralleled or similar. But those are some of the two areas that I think extra volunteers or time, maybe even if the school knows of someone, I don't know if like a local school would be able to connect someone on like, hey, I'm really good at interviewing. I would like to help some of the youth who need on that. That might be a place to start as well, or Google search.
Yeah, there was one in Seattle, a great one called Youth Build, and so their whole thing was putting people who didn't graduate high school through a GED program and teaching them to build tiny homes from the ground up. So they're learning all these individual building a tiny home has all of the construction. It's windows, doors, framing, foundation. So they learn a little bit about a lot of things, and then they partner with businesses who are hiring for entry level positions, so they become a better candidate.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
This is probably not something that you know, but if you had to estimate, how many kids age out of the foster care system and then end up homeless?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't know the exact number, but I would not be surprised if it's higher than we guess or we would think. Um, because life is hard for all of us, even with really good support systems and layered support systems. And I think too, just, mental health needs and substance abuse needs, and those things also can add a big play into that as well. And we've talked a little bit too about confidence at different times and how learning skills can help build confidence. And so I think that's why some of these programs are so valuable, is it helps them see like, I bring value. Somebody needs me at a job. I'm needed and I'm valuable and I can
Right.
do good things despite everything that they've been through.
Yeah, it seems important that they get that experience of connection and feeling useful and helpful and purposeful
It helps them
out the
take
gate.
Yeah, and it helps them take control of a life they haven't had control of.
Right.
They're in
Yeah.
foster care because of unfortunate choices that the adults in their lives have made, or accidents, or, traumatic things that have happened that are out of other people's control. There's a lot of reasons, but I think it's a pivotal time, especially like 16 on, of really learning that they can shape their future into whatever they want or need it to be. And they're no longer needing to rely only on other people.
That's such a beautiful, like, message to give to people that, as you said, haven't had a lot of control growing up. And you assume when you're a kid, this is how it is. Like you look around and you assume the adults know what they're doing and like everybody's got it under control, right? And this is just what being a grown-up is like. And then you get older and you're like, wait a second, like I can make decisions. I can decide what my life looks like. But for someone who has, throughout their entire childhood not had practice with that, what an incredible message to say, you know what? You're worthy. This life can be what you want it to be. And so I'm so happy to hear that there are organizations out there helping to build that confidence in these kids so that they can become the people that they want to be and build the lives that are authentic to them.
It
Yeah.
feels important. It feels like just like handouts aren't the answer alone. Like we do need goodie bags and we need like these things like handed out donations and things, but I don't know if if I turned 18 and I just got everything handed to me. And then it was like I got everything handed to me because I was a victim of circumstance. What is that installing in me?
Mhm.
Right. So
Very
I
good
can
point.
only imagine. So I think like restoring some like no, if you put in a little work and help build this tiny home, then you get this like stamp on your resume that says you're worthy of this new job, and now you're worthy of this paycheck that you're getting. And I think yeah, that's like really important. It's like no, I work for myself. I work and
Yeah.
I make decisions and they have outcomes and all of that. So yeah,
Yeah, I
it's good to
agree.
remember.
And for those who need extra support with mental health or substance use, through state insurance, you can call the number on the back of the insurance card and ask for a list of providers to connect to resources. I think that that is another thing that can be tricky for people to navigate on how do they get help and support in those areas. Any insurance, actually, you can call and ask for a list of providers, but if
Really?
someone's on a state insurance, you also can do that. There's a phone number on the back of the card, or you can Google state insure, places that take that type of funding, and then look through the different options that are available to find one that would be helpful for you.
So the insurance system has their own resources in place, or their third part, they're just a resource line? Or
Essentially, a
they
resource
know the ones that
line.
exist? Okay.
Yeah, so they will say these are all the ones that we contract with and that we will pay for services for, whether you have commercial or state funded insurance. And
When it comes
so
to mental health care.
any medical, mental health, substance use,
Right.
anything
Okay.
that could be
Okay.
covered by insurance.
Okay.
So the education, career, that stuff would not be covered in this. But if you need something medically, mental health, substance use, you can call and ask for a list of providers in your area. Same thing, you can ask geographically. I can only go within 5 miles or 25 miles, and then they can send you a list to research. Not necessarily ones that anyone says yay or nay on, just simply a list of options.
You are a wealth of knowledge, Rochelle.
Yeah, I'm learning a
Sheesh.
lot.
Yeah, all right. So I'm kind of curious. I loved your example of tying knots for blankets. What are some other, what's one of your favorite things that you've done or you've heard people doing for volunteering that's kind of outside the box?
Good question.
I'm asking the question as though you haven't already answered it with the tying knots one I went over.
Like, how do you beat tying knots on quilts?
What else?
I think ones that I tend to like are just like putting supplies together. I don't know, there's something satisfying of like you take a gallon Ziploc bag and you put all the lunch items in it and then you hand it off and then
Yeah.
you put
It's
hygiene items in
therapeutic, isn't
another
it?
one and then
Just
you hand it off.
organizing. Yeah.
Yeah, because then you can actually see what you're doing. You can see everything like piling up. I don't know that I really have like a favorite. I've kind of done a variety. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Your family culture very much was inclusive of these ideas, right? Like your parents were, or it sounds like your mother in particular, was very aware of the community and the needs that the community has and how you can help. And now that you have your own kiddos, what are you doing to help foster that same sense of giving back within your own home?
good question. I'm trying to follow the example kind of that my parents set, less on talking about it maybe and more just doing it. Like when we drive somewhere, like handing out a water bottle or handing out a granola. Also, I just always have snacks, like just because I want them. But so like chances are I'm gonna have a granola bar and fruit snacks in my purse or bag at any
Yeah.
time for any reason. And so when we see people just being like, hey, why don't you hand this to them? Or why don't you give them this water bottle? I remember my mom when we were young, I had asked her, I was probably like 5, 6, or 7, like very young. I said, well, why don't we have a yard sale? And she was like, well, we don't need a yard sale, but somebody might need our things. And that has just really, I don't even know if my mom remembers saying that, but that's just really stood with me my whole life. And just seeing them donate time, whether it's to help someone in their yard or in their home, or my mom would volunteer at the clothing closet and food pantries, and we would go with her when we didn't have school. So we, got exposed to that also. And then just humanitarian efforts as well too through church. So I think just seeing it a lot growing up, I didn't realize that that wasn't normal and that wasn't just something that everybody sees and does and is aware of. So trying to, like last fall, me and some friends donate because a lot of people will have like a bag of clothes they want to donate in their trunk for like months at a time.
Yeah.
And me and one of my best friends, we were like, hey, come drop them off to us and we'll donate them for you. And I think it was like 50 garbage bags full of clothes. We got way more than we anticipated. And, the kids were able to also go through some items that they didn't want anymore and participate in that. And so that was like really cool to see the community come together for that also.
Yeah, it's another great way, I think, to rally your troops, just the little things. Hey, everyone, drop your stuff off at my house and I'll take it for you. Or things like that. That's so great. I mentioned I have a couple little kids too, and I think about how to help encourage them to help, right? To have this compassionate heart for people. And it's funny. I don't know if you've struggled with this, but there's been moments where we always say stranger danger with kids, right? Like that's a whole thing. So it's funny because I've had to sort of walk this line of like, we are compassionate and they've seen me interact with people, right? If I see, a couple weeks ago, I saw someone walking down the street and he was limping and he had really bad shoes on. And I'd had a pair of tennis shoes in my back of my car just for that reason. And I'd gotten out and given him these shoes. And it was a 1 minute interaction. And my son in the back was like, "Oh, I'll give it to him. I'll give it to him." And he really wanted to. And I kind of wanted him to. But at the same time, you have to keep them safe. You've got to
Mhm.
walk that line between being trusting and being aware. Have you ever dealt with anything like that, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a great question. One example that keeps coming to mind is I think I was in middle school or high school. It was back when the Samsung flip phone was just coming out, right? So probably like
Coolest
early
phone.
2000, like, yeah. And we had gone, I think it was as a church community, maybe to downtown Seattle to serve lunch. To feed lunch, and they had a whole bag of those phones so that people could call their family, call parole officers, reach out to whoever, apply for a job, like reach out to whoever they needed. And I remember they did give us a little bit of education around how to have safe boundaries and help. And some of it was like go places in the middle of the day where there are other people and it is an open community, or work with a program who already knows kind of the nuances of how to do that. And so just taking the time to educate yourself a little bit. And I think this is great advice, whether you're volunteering or just like in life, like know your surroundings and know what that's like, because like the town I live in now is very, very different than like a big city. And so the things that we can do in different parts of town and different parts of the day are a lot more here than maybe when I lived downtown Seattle. And so I think just being really aware and cautious of that. And when I was younger, I don't ever remember doing anything like alone. It always was with a lot of other adults who were like helping us navigate it also. Um, so I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind.
It does. It does. As we talk about ways people can give back and putting yourselves in situations that maybe you haven't put yourselves in before, right? I think the self-awareness, your surroundings, being aware of your surroundings is really important advice for everyone, but especially for women. I think, to
Yeah.
feel like you can, defend yourself and heaven forbid you ever need to. But
Hmm.
so I took a women's self-defense class back in December. It'd been on my bucket list for like 2 years to take a self-defense class. I think I just sort of wanted to feel like a badass for a little while, and I totally did. So I took this class, and it was really helpful. It was really helpful to feel like empowered that I would be able to, take my kids to the park. And if someone had approached me that felt uncomfortable, I could potentially, protect my children. Um, and it was funny because I took this class, and I had realized after the class, I think I'm actually more equipped to do this work with less anxiety now, right? Like I'm aware, but I'm not like scared that I can't defend myself, right? So I'm actually able to do the work with a more open heart because of that experience. So I think that's something to offer to people if that's helpful to them.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. And I think you mentioned the word aware. I think part of it too is just being aware of your surroundings before you go and while you're going. One thing a lot of times people are just on their phone all the time and then they aren't aware and then they do become a target for trafficking or whatever, theft, whatever it is. And so just making sure that you are making eye contact with people and your head is held high and you're looking around and you're staying alert is very important.
Yeah,
And
can
if
you
you want to help a community that maybe you are unsure or don't feel comfortable navigating, that might be a great opportunity to donate monetarily to a program who does help that. You don't have to be the person that goes into the middle of everything and provides it. You can help those who do that.
Yeah, that's great. That's also, I think, a form of self-awareness, right? Knowing where your boundaries are and what you're comfortable giving. Maybe one day you'll be the person out there on the front lines, but you don't have to start with that.
Hmm.
You can build up to that over time.
So I love your quote on the you're anxious, do it anyway. I feel like that's kind of built in to the Mormon religion. I had a similar experience growing up, and my dad was just awesome in that department. We had a lot of volunteer opportunities. Didn't have a great attitude at the time. Didn't want to do it, and Dad's like, "Do it anyway. You said you're going to do it." And yeah, I think that that's a great mantra to have. Get some volunteer opportunities on the schedule and hold yourself accountable. Just do it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I like that. I want to do this thing, but I'm anxious. Okay, well, I guess you're doing it anxiously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know,
But you got
yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
You said you were. Yeah.
Yeah, and the more times you do things anxiously, right? Or whatever, you do them out of your
Yeah,
comfort
hopefully
zone.
it's everything you
Yeah,
do
hopefully it's not every time, but you're just that little
Sometimes you're happy
girl.
about it, hopefully.
Yeah, you've got kids. You've probably seen Inside Out too. The little character anxiety just cracks me
Yes.
up. I'm like, she's my girl. I get her. But hopefully more and more you do these things and there's a little that lessens each time, right? Each time you've done something a few more times, like, okay, I can do this. And it's just that first few times you sort of have to break through and build that neural pathway of like, yeah, it's uncomfortable. Keep going, you know?
True. And there's a difference in I'm anxious because this is dangerous versus
Yeah.
I'm anxious because it's
Right.
Good
unfamiliar. So just
distinction.
be clear, if you
Yes.
feel unsafe in any way, don't do
Yeah.
things anxiously. That's
Yeah.
when stop.
Totally. Yeah.
Glad you said
Don't
that.
don't
Yeah.
gaslight yourself. Yeah. Yeah. I'm anxious because since COVID, we're all anxious.
Yes, exactly.
I know that this world can make a lot of us, I mean, just the way that the world is can make a lot of us just feel anxious. Like we all know, we all hear that word thrown out around a lot for a reason. Do you find that working with the youth, do you find that there's a high rate of anxiety in the youth? Or what would you say if there is an overwhelming um, emotion that is triggered in children who are susceptible to this system or in this system? Um, is there like an emotion that concerns you that you see that maybe weighs heavy on them that shouldn't at this age?
One word that keeps coming to mind as you say that is hopelessness.
Mm.
And that's kind of tied with a lot of different feelings and kind of goes back to helping people take their power back and take their, get the courage to take control of their life and their future. I think that it's very easy, myself included, to just get stuck doom scrolling. And then, you click on one thing and then it changes your whole algorithm. So then that's all you're seeing online. And I really just think that unplugging and having in-person conversations can really help overcome that feeling of hopelessness because the algorithms want us to believe that nobody's aligned and nobody agrees and there's all these things going wrong in the world and you have to very strategically follow people on social media or click on certain things to like actively see that there is good. But just connecting in person with people, I think, is like the absolute fastest way to do that. And I think that whether it's youth or young adults or even adults, there can just be this overwhelming feeling of hopelessness um, that I think, yeah, that does worry me a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned the algorithms and all the feelings they want us to feel for some reason. But also feeling, disempowered. Is that the word?
Mhm.
Unempowered. Feeling like there's nothing, it's all burning and there's nothing you can do about it. Right. And so it's so incredible to talk to someone like you who just does it. You just get out there and you do it. You see a need and you fill it. You see a problem and you try to fix it. And it's not with this like savior type mentality. It's with this is the small thing that I can do and I'm gonna do it. And I'm gonna inspire others. And I just thank you for that. I think we need more people like you.
Thank you.
Rochelle, you were one of the first names on the list when we were just brainstorming who do we want to talk to, and yeah, like we said in your introduction, you do all these great things with the mental health industry too, but that's just one aspect. And this part of what you're doing is it's inspiring. Really appreciate you taking the time to come on, and it's very nice to talk with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we'll let you get back to your day, but this was great, and thank you again for all your time and resources.
Thank you,
Thank
Rachelle. We
you.
really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned so much. I feel like even if we have, if nobody watches this but us, you just taught 3 people a lot.
Yeah.
So
Totally,
thank
for
you so
sure.
much for putting that out and speaking with us in this setting. It's just another brave thing that you have done, and we appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you
you
so
can
much.
add that to your resume, your very long resume of the things that you've done.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today, you guys. I really appreciate what you're doing and all the people that you're going to bless with this effort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
That
saying
means a
that.
lot. All right, let's unpack that.
So
That was a great conversation. I learned a lot from Rachelle. I think um, she's just such an incredible person. She's so empowering and inspiring.
Yeah, I feel like she just powers through whenever if she has tough times, just like everybody, and um, does it anyway. That's the part that sticks with me about her. She's got a long track record of good things.
yeah, it's like these things are out there. Like obviously I know I can donate my clothes somewhere besides Goodwill, and I have tried. And I mean I have successfully done that, but it's not it doesn't feel as easy as like yeah, I know there's a Goodwill right there. I know where it is. Like just go there.
Well,
But
yeah,
so I just
Marysville has those boxes, those big green
no, yeah,
boxes.
sure. And that's what I mean is like they exist, but it was nice hearing it from her like it's I just think it's good for us to see people walking the walk and not just on the other side of a screen. You know what I mean? Like we see people doing things all day long on social media, but that doesn't make it feel accessible. When there's like somebody
Hmm.
and you're talking with directly and they're doing the things, it feels so much more empowering and like accessible
Yeah.
for you yourself to do.
Mhm.
And so yeah, like well, like asking somebody like her, like, well, how do you find these things? Like, where do you know to donate your clothes and stuff? And just hearing her methods of like finding little ways to help,
Yeah. So it's funny
it's
because
helpful.
we grew up in the same situation, and I had the exact same experience of her of like it was weird that people didn't know this stuff because it was kind of you're raised and taught it, and it's I had a similar aha moment to her of like nobody else is doing this, and it was very frustrating to me of like why is nobody helping, why is nobody doing anything, and
Yeah.
it's just when you're not when it's not part of the everyday culture, like of course with anything, whoever said it earlier today, it's you got to start from the ground up. You can't skip steps, and if you're never taught it or never learn it, then just assume that nobody's learned it, and we got to spread the awareness.
Yeah, Derek, you both have mentioned how you were both raised in the Mormon religion. How do you feel like being raised in that religion impacted your view of service growing up?
I never felt the level of collaboration that she's doing now.
Mm.
It felt like and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it felt like we were our own bucket, and it was we help each other move, and we help each other shovel dirt and
Oh, as
do
far as the
Other Mormon
church,
families?
yeah, like
like
everybody,
it
we
was
were all
like
helping
your
each
church,
other.
and then there were
Hmm.
other churches where
Yeah,
she's
yeah, it felt very,
more
and
integrated. Yeah.
I was a kid, so don't take that as fact, but it felt like we had our little community, and it didn't feel bigger. We would do things like
Mhm.
you know serve food and help the homeless in different ways. But her calling at her church right now is a collaborator.
Hmm.
Like she's seeking
Oh,
out these partnerships with other churches, and that's what I love. I love that. I don't care what type of organization you are, if you're kind of
Right.
raising it all together. Well, I think it all comes
yeah.
back to just connecting and talking. Because yeah, if you don't talk to each other, then how do you know? You know what I mean? You gotta just
Yeah.
connecting in general. That's my dad comes to mind all the time. He was the always talking. He would come back. He would take a bus to work, and he'd come back with stories of how he connected with this stranger. And he had this curiosity and the big eyes of like, yeah, we talked about this, and it was just so excited. And yeah, I wish I could channel that a little more. That's what I'm trying to trying to get back
Yeah.
to.
Well, I mean, I think it was also a different world back then, you
That's
know.
true. Yeah.
The things you hear about now, you're like, oh, maybe I should just,
Shouldn't have talked to that person.
yeah, should just hide. But you know, the number of times I'm sure anyone listening can relate to that, but like the number of times you do put yourself out there and you go, you know what? That was great. Why don't I do that
Yeah.
more? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's that anxiety of like, yeah, when you don't know somebody, you don't realize how friendly they probably are. Just start the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And I had heard this thing about how like the greatest, I'm gonna butcher this, so my apologies, but like the best way to overcome your feeling of isolation and loneliness is to give back, is to volunteer, to donate your time. And so just imagine what a world it would be like if we all just took that sadness and loneliness and were able to channel it into bettering our communities.
Well
That'd be
said.
amazing. Yeah. She gave us some really great tips. I love the blessing bags. I think that's always something that's great. And, you know, I have thought about how helpful is that really? And it was really nice for me to hear that that's a good thing to do. Like, you know,
Mhm.
it is helpful to give items to people that need them. Um, and it's something that we should all be doing. Yeah.
Yeah, you can understand why it'd be frustrating for a foster care mother who works in youth advocacy for mental health. Like, why, like, her just wanting so badly to take care of these children, you know, and the youth, and how she said it was frustrating for her. It's like one thing that's really frustrating is just when like the parents who are impacting these children so negatively with their decisions and their choices. And it's like I can imagine somebody, I mean, because she's essentially on the other side of that, where she's making, you know, these like in like very devoted altruistic choices, but because she's doing that, because she's given her life to making those altruistic just like choices and giving back in the way she has a frontline view and is like a front row witness to the opposite side, like the other end of that spectrum of parents who are making choices that are just so harmful for the children, and how she
Mm-hmm.
just has to face that every time, every day,
Yeah.
essentially. And yeah, I mean, it's totally reasonable that that is so frustrating for her. It
So,
makes you wonder, like, how can we, like, are there resources for the parents that need like
Mm.
re-guidance? It's like,
very good point.
you know,
Yeah. I think Carsey was you that brought up like the teenage years of graduating out. She's helping this young woman who is transitioning into college and teaching her all the financial side of things and putting things on her radar that she didn't know about. And I'm just very, very proud of her.
wow.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
thing she said about, I really thought that was incredible. The thing she said about like wanting to be ready before she fostered, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's such a, with anything, right? Like we're like, oh, we want to know how to do it before we do it. We want to be perfect.
Yeah, this was a multi-year process for her. It took a while to get her, and understandably, that's not a short-term thing. That's not a do it and forget about it. It's, you know,
Yeah.
long-term
Yeah.
relationship.
I also thought what she said about hopelessness was really poignant. Like you know, that feeling of hopelessness is just such a, it's debilitating. It's like
Yeah.
where do you go from there? You know,
And
when
that's,
there's
yeah, Angie said in the context of like that's the overwhelming, that's kind of the most common negative emotion she's saying, you
Mhm.
know, like
Yeah.
hopelessness at such a young age.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
a great question, by the way. That's such a, that's just so sad. It's so sad to be hopeless at such a young age.
Yeah.
Well, it was great. I really enjoyed talking to her. Hopefully, she will join our Facebook group where our listeners can also connect with her and maybe ask her some of the questions that they're wondering about. So, um, okay,
All right.
boom.
We're supposed to
Now we bow our heads.
clap.
This is-
Pray.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for listening to Unpacking Homelessness. This episode was produced and edited by us. Our theme song is by Eric Lawson. You can find more of his music at soundcloud.com/eelaws. If you or someone you know would like to contribute to our show, get in touch with us at unpackinghomelessness@gmail.com. Until next time.